Many people feel that the cross-text connections passages are among the hardest passages on the SAT. It's easy to see why. They can involve a lot of reading, which can use up a lot of time. We'll look at some strategies to make these questions easier, but perhaps the best strategy is to save cross-text connections, or CTCs, for last. If you get one in the hard module, skip it. Go on to other passages that might be easier to understand, and come back to this if you have time. Just don't forget to guess randomly. You should never, ever leave an SAT question blank. Luckily, each SAT has just one CTC question. No matter what, they will not have a big impact on your score. Let's look at some strategies that we can use to help us solve this example question. One important strategy is to make sure that you read the question first before you read the passages. Unlike other SAT passage questions, CTCs can ask different things that might affect how we read the two passages. Our example says, based on the texts, how would researchers like myelizidis, text 2, most likely respond to the consensus mentioned in text 1? This is the most common CTC question type. How would text 2 respond to text 1? For questions like this, we might want to read text 2 before text 1 so that we know what text 2 believes right away. Then, as we read text 1, we can already start thinking about what text 2 might say about it. If this is confusing, that's okay. Reading text 2 first is an optional strategy. Personally, I think it helps me stay focused on the right ideas, but it's not going to make a big difference on whether you get the question right or wrong. Just do whatever helps you understand what you're reading. You certainly would not want to read the passages in reverse order if you have a different type of CTC question. They will sometimes ask, how would text 1 respond to text 2? Or they can ask what both texts would agree on. In those cases, you should definitely read the passages in the order they're presented. Still, to see how the strategy would work, let's read text 2 first for this example. Remember, as you read, try to think about a dumb summary that will capture the main idea. While the commensal relationship theory provides a plausible explanation for the initial stages of dog domestication, researchers like Art myelizidis propose a more active human role. Let's pause there. Right away, I have a very clear idea what text 2 is saying. Even though it sounds a little like the commensal theory, whatever that is, could be correct, this first sentence is clearly telling me that text 2 believes the commensal theory is wrong. I should write that dumb summary on my scratch paper. Yes, the first sentence acknowledges that the commensal theory is plausible, meaning possible, but the word while is a dead giveaway that there is something wrong with this theory. Specifically, myelizidis proposes that humans had a more active role than the commensal theory suggests. As we keep reading, listen for strong words that repeat key ideas. Genetic studies suggest that early humans may have deliberately selected and bred specific wolf traits, favoring docile and cooperative individuals. This intentional intervention could have accelerated the evolution of dog-like behaviors, resulting in a more rapid and profound transformation than a purely commensal relationship would allow. Did you notice the strong words? Remember that main ideas are repeated ideas, and we can enhance our dumb summary using those repeated ideas. The humans had an active role. They deliberately bred certain traits. They were intentional. These are different words, but they all have the same basic meaning. Similarly, we read about an accelerated evolution and a more rapid transformation. Again, different words that repeat the same basic idea. I would also write down that the commensal theory is wrong because domestication was actually more active and more rapid. The commensal theory does not allow for these kinds of changes. This is a good reminder to use your scratch paper during the reading modules, especially for hard questions like CTCs that involve a lot of reading. We still need to read text 1, and I don't want to forget the key ideas that I learned from text 2. Notice that text 1 includes some background information that we really didn't need in order to understand the main argument of text 2. The domestication of dogs, a partnership between humans and canines that dates back approximately 30,000 years, is often attributed to a symbiotic relationship. The consensus among researchers is that this process began with a commensal bond, as early humans and wolves were drawn together by mutual benefits. We now have evidence of something that we had assumed earlier, that the consensus mentioned in the question is the commensal theory talked about in text 2. The rest of the passage includes details that might matter, but I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about them. We can continue reading. Humans generated food waste, which attracted wolves, particularly those less fearful of humans. These wolves, with increased access to resources, had a higher chance of survival and reproduction. We can always come back to these details if we need them later. As we read the answer choices, stay focused on the dumb summaries that we wrote on our scratch paper. Choice A. Text 2 would respond to text 1 by arguing that the commensal theory allows for a more rapid rate of genetic change than was previously thought. Well, I like that it says more rapid, but is this choice really saying that the commensal theory is wrong? When it says that the theory allows for a more rapid rate of change, it sounds like we're defending the commensal theory, maybe changing it slightly so that text 2 would be more likely to agree with it. But that's not what we said would happen, which is that text 2 disagrees with the commensal theory. Choice A might actually be a bit of a trap, because it sounds like something text 1 might say in response to text 2. But that was not our task. We need to say how text 2 would respond to text 1. That's why it's important to read the question beforehand so that we don't confuse the two passages. I would eliminate this choice and move on to choice B. Text 2 would respond to text 1 by dismissing the commensal relationship theory due to a lack of archaeological evidence dating from the period widely believed to be the beginning of the domestication process. Again, there's something I like in this choice. Dismissing the commensal relationship theory sounds a lot like our dumb summary that the commensal theory is wrong. But did we ever read about a lack of archaeological evidence? That seems random. Neither passage talked about specific pieces of evidence. We can get rid of choice B2 and move on to choice C. Text 2 would respond to text 1 by claiming that greater access to food resources would be insufficient to account for the speed of the changes exhibited by dogs during the domestication period. This also seems to bring up a random piece of information. Our dumb summary does not talk about food resources. More important, choice C doesn't seem to mention the commensal theory at all. Let's double check text 1 though. Notice that when text 1 introduces the commensal theory, it talks about food waste attracting wolves, which then had increased access to resources. Choice C is doing something that the SAT does on a lot of reading passages, not just the cross-text connections. They know that we really want the correct answer to talk about the commensal theory, and most people would cross this answer choice out because it never actually uses the word commensal. However, the SAT is still talking about the commensal theory, but using different words. They're talking in code. They're disguising the theory so that you are less likely to pick this answer. The commensal theory is about access to food resources. So when choice C talks about food resources, they're actually talking about the commensal theory. We can basically make a substitution. Now let's compare this choice to our dumb summary from before. Text 2 would claim that the commensal theory is insufficient. That sounds like we're saying the theory is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because it doesn't account for the speed of the changes. That sounds like we're saying that domestication was actually more rapid than the commensal theory allows. Once we crack the code, we can see that choice C is a pretty good match for our dumb summary. Still, we need to check choice D. Text 2 would respond by pointing out that modern wolves do not display the fear response necessary for domestication as outlined in the commensal relationship theory. I immediately noticed the strong word modern. Did we talk about modern wolves versus ancient wolves? I don't think so. In fact, this stands out as probably a time trap. Many wrong answers on the SAT introduce the concept of time when the passage doesn't focus on it at all. If the passages aren't contrasting ancient and modern wolves, then the answer choices shouldn't focus on them either. At this point, I would feel confident picking choice C. Throughout this process, my dumb summary kept me focused on the right ideas. Let's remember that as we review the main strategies for the cross-text connections questions. Don't forget that there shouldn't be more than one CTC question per SAT, so these are not a huge priority. Since they take a bit more time than other SAT passages, you might want to save CTCs for last so that they don't slow you down or break your rhythm. If you have time to try your CTC, make sure you read the question first so that you perform the right task. If they ask how text 2 would respond to text 1, you might want to read text 2 first so that you get a good idea of what those authors believe. If this confuses you, that's okay. You can skip this strategy. But you can never skip the strategies that we should be using for all SAT reading passages. In fact, the most important strategies for the CTC questions are the exact same strategies that we should be using for every single SAT passage question. Write dumb summaries that capture the main idea without getting distracted by unnecessary details. Notice when strong words repeat an idea, because those are details that probably matter. And make sure you know how to avoid the most common types of trap answers. The SAT follows relatively predictable patterns in wrong answer choices, and you can train yourself to spot them quickly to save time and points. If you're struggling with cross-text connections passages, the strategies on the left might give you a little bit of a boost. But honestly, it's much more likely that you need to get better at the strategies on the right. My diagnosis is that you're not struggling with the cross-text connections questions. You're struggling with all of the hard-reading passages. Actively practice writing dumb summaries, noticing strong words, and avoiding trap answers on all SAT passage types, and you will naturally improve on the CTCs as well. Good luck, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.